State Building in the Middle East and North Africa, 100 Years of Nationalism, Religion and Politics, is a book published by IB Tauris in Bloomsbury in London. It is concerned with the history of the state building process in the Middle East and North Africa over the past 100 years. The book has 10 chapters and a chronology. The 10 chapters are divided in 3 sections, looking at the foundations of this history, some of the case studies that are examined, and the most recent so-called reinventions or returns. The section looks at reconfigurations of that particular set of challenges in the more recent period in the earlier 21st century. The book is concerned primarily with the question of how difficult and how problematic it has been for the states of this region, straddling North Africa, the Middle East, in establishing viable, lasting, performative states that are able to generate a set of services for their countries to function with a basis of legitimacy and to be able to be representative in that sense. Those objectives have not been met. These countries remain largely in a relationship of dependency with the outside world, whether the former colonial power in Europe or whether the imperial power of the United States and other types of complex tapestry of relationships, essentially slowing down that process. The origins of the story, the book argues, has to do with this complex, slow, and convoluted end of the Ottoman Empire, in which the dying phase of that system that had controlled most of these regions, both in North Africa and the Middle East, over some 400 years or so, generated all manners of upheavals, tensions, hopes, aspirations, which played out in quite incomplete ways all the way to the middle of the 20th century as the nationalist movements and the religious movements became involved in a tug of war for who was going to be the lead actor and ideology in those systems, dominating other forms of representation, including liberal forms of representations for that matter. This is the second set of influences which the book tackles, the complex relationship between the nationalists and the religious actors for that matter. The story of the post-colonial state is then addressed in relation primarily to the regimes that had in their authoritarian systems and in their reliance on the military primarily come to dominate these systems, putting down, repressing, and of course delaying, in effect, the key notion, the state building process in its generic sort of representative objective as noted. Some of the case studies look at Iraq, which is a particularly rich case, look at the question of Palestine, look at the question of the Kurdish project, which has been frustrated in many different places, in Iraq, in Syria, in Turkey, in Iran, and all of the implications of that story. The last part of the book examines sort of the more recent forms of interventionism that we have seen in the region and how this has also sort of replayed these dynamics of control and generating a type of weakness or weakening rather of these states, which is coming up on top of that delayed state building sequence that we've seen. All in all, the series of contributions by eminent scholars and colleagues that have been working on these different themes for many years give us an updated take on an issue which in fact had not been frontally tackled in terms of the state building challenge itself. The question of the state has long been addressed in MENA studies, the question of conflictuality, religion, nationalism, of course, there's a wealth of studies, but this book tried to essentially be a compendium of the challenge over 100 years, roughly the 1910s to the 2010s in terms of how this has been played in a very frustrating and delayed sequence of state building. It looks forward to what kind of reinventions and returns could be possible and takes it on from the Arab Spring forward, examining the new challenges that have emerged and the potential responses to that. Thank you.